You've always thrown everything you could at me. Well, I can take it! And now I can give it back!
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy. So Avatar: The Last Airbender is a timeless masterpiece. So to celebrate the arrival of the live-action adaptation on Netflix, I want to examine the 9th episode in Book 2, Bitter Work. An episode that masterfully weaves together all the best parts of the show: character arcs, bending, and world building. Oh, and before we go any further, this is going to be a celebration of Avatar: The Last Airbender, so big spoilers are ahead. We're going to explain how Iroh's lesson about lightning generation is crucial for the rest of the show. So let's talk about why Avatar: The Last Airbender is so great and why it will always withstand the test of time. And by the way, I am proud to announce that we have brand new Avatar parody merch at our merch store, ScreenCrushMerch.com, where we design all the merch ourselves. We have this brand new bison shirt with an air bison as the shark in Jaws, this Uncle Sam We Want You wartime poster for the Fire Nation, and your typical I lost my honor at the Fire Nation and all I got was this lousy t-shirt shirt. Guys, shopping our merch store is the best way for you to directly support our channel and help us to make videos like this. The links are below.
Prince Zuko, pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source. True humility is the only antidote to shame.
Bitter Work is a pretty uneventful episode compared to some of the greatest episodes of the show. The one thing everybody remembers from this episode is the incredible ending with Zuko. However, the lessons learned in Bitter Work encompass the fundamental connections of character arcs and world building, and its implications echo throughout the rest of the show. Bitter Work takes place after Zuko alone and the chase.
What happens in those episodes?
Well, the important stuff is that Zuko leaves his uncle, searching for a new purpose after failing to capture Aang.
I want the Avatar. I want my honor, my throne.
Eventually, Zuko reunites with his uncle and they help Team Avatar against Azula, and she almost kills Iroh. And this is why Zuko asks his uncle to teach him lightning generation so he can defeat Azula.
So firebenders are Sith Lords?
Something like that. Some firebenders have the unique ability to generate lightning. It's a secret technique only known to the royal family, and it's pretty much instant kill. Iroh usually tries to be Zuko's moral compass, but even he knows that Azula...
She's crazy and she needs to go down.
Iroh explains that there's energy all around them. That energy is both yin and yang. Iroh describes these forces as positive energy and negative energy.
Or like the Force.
Yes, that's part of it. To generate lightning, a firebender must separate those opposing energies. Doing so creates an imbalance. The energy wants to restore balance, and so...
the positive and negative energy come crashing back together, creating lightning.
Now, in Chinese philosophy, yin and yang represent the connectivity of opposite forces. But they are really two sides of the same coin or the same cycle. They complement each other.
They balance each other, push and pull, life and death, good and evil.
This parallels Aang and Zuko, who are mirror images of one another, and we see this duality in their struggles in this episode. Zuko is all about uncontrolled emotion and pride, even rage, like a blazing fire. But to generate lightning, Zuko must put aside his raw emotions. His emotions are in turmoil, and he's too proud to admit that, which is why this happens.
Ugh! Instead of lightning, it keeps exploding in my face. Like everything always does.
We are so excited to finally be covering Avatar on our channel. I mean, the show has this incredible world with an expansive story that just invites you in so you can add a bit to it yourself. And this is one reason why Avatar: The Last Airbender is like such a popular RPG setting. You can go on sites like World Anvil and take a really deep dive into this lore, explore Avatar campaigns, and even design your own Avatar RPGs. I mean, World Anvil officially supports the Avatar Legends RPG system.
Wait, hold on. What's World Anvil?
Oh, dude, you don't know World Anvil? It's a software you can use for world building. You can use it for writing a fantasy or sci-fi novel, or it's like perfect for tabletop games. Really, any kind of world building you want to do, it is a great platform. Like seriously, you never heard of World Anvil?
No, not until now, no.
Well, World Anvil is our sponsor for this video, and they're not just one tool, it's 3 complete creative tool sets: a world building suite, an RPG campaign manager, and a novel writing and publishing tool. You can create interactive maps or use their huge library of character sheets and stat blocks. It's actually perfect for an RPG campaign manager if you want to build original settings for D&D, Pathfinder, and 45 more RPGs. You can keep all essential lore and stats just one click away for really fast, hassle-free prep and immersive sessions. It's actually used by like 2 million game masters.
Well, I don't read a tabletop game, but I am writing a fantasy novel. It's about a young pup named Doug who comes from humble beginnings. But get this, Doug is secretly the chosen one.
Dude, that's awesome. Would read, by the way. So World Anvil could also help you plan that novel with features like family trees, timelines, mind mapping, and plot templates based on proven storytelling methods. And with publishing, subscription, and monetization tools, you can build your own fan base. Writer's Digest actually listed World Anvil as a best website for writers. So if you want to immerse yourself in the world of Avatar or create your own new worlds, I highly suggest you try worldanvil.com. If you click the link in the description and use our code ScreenCrush, not only are you going to be helping out our channel, but you will also get 51% off any premium subscription. Now, back to Avatar. So in this episode, Iroh gives Zuko a lesson about the 4 elements, but this is more than just world building. In his explanation, we see how each element is embodied by the characters of the show. So we're going to explain how these elements relate to the character and then circle back to Zuko and see why these lessons are so important for the entire show. Because, paralleling Zuko's story, Aang fails with earthbending because it's the opposite of air. Toph's lessons are all about facing things head-on and standing your ground. Now this goes against everything Aang knows. As an airbender, Aang is free-spirited, always using his humor to keep things light, like air.
Air is the element of freedom. The air nomads detached themselves from worldly concerns and found peace and freedom.
Air nomads are peaceful people, and when Aang must fight, he always uses evasiveness as a form of defense. But it's also one of his biggest flaws. With his responsibility as the Avatar becoming too heavy of a burden, he starts struggling and uses his evasion as a form of avoidance. At one point, Toph forces Aang to face a rolling boulder head-on. He must act like an earthbender, stay in his stance, and stop the rock. The boulder symbolizes the responsibility Aang keeps trying to run away from. It can also signify his inevitable duty of facing the Fire Lord and defeating him. So this rolling rock encompasses all of Aang's fears. This is why he regresses to evasion, unable to stand his ground against the inevitable consequences of his responsibility. It's the reason why he ran away from the Air Temple 100 years ago. It's what set the entire story into motion. He must restore balance for himself and the entire world because, like Toph says, sometimes you must stand your ground because there's no place to run away.
There's no different angle, no clever solution, no trickety trick that's gonna move that rock. You've gotta face it head on.
To learn a bending technique, a bender must have the discipline to train until mastering it. And that's the bitter work. According to Sifu Kusi, the martial arts expert who helped create the bending techniques for the show, the translation of Kung Fu in traditional Chinese is bitter work, meaning that it takes discipline and hard work to master the martial arts. Also, in the episode The Avatar and the Fire Lord, Avatar Roku refers to his training as,
"It was bitter work, but the results were worth it."
Now later in the episode, Aang stands his ground when he must save Sokka's life. When his friends are in danger, Aang finds the balance in his opposing energies and faces problems head on. And this allows him to break through his mental block and learn how to earthbend, meaning that he has found his inner balance. Every character in the show struggles with the duality of their positive and negative energies. They all deal with an inner imbalance, avoiding some sort of trauma. So, Iroh's explanation about the elements is actually a metaphor for every character in this episode.
Oh yeah, good point.
Because Toph pretty much embodies Iroh's explanation about Earth.
Earth is the element of substance. The people of the Earth Kingdom are diverse and strong. They are persistent and enduring.
Toph refused to let her disability rule her, and she became the best earthbender alive. She even created an entirely new technique to control metal so she could escape from a prison cell.
Woo! Toph, you rule.
Which symbolized the prison that her parents built for her. She's so tough that she created armor, a layer around herself, never letting anyone in, unable to ask for help, fearing that it would be mistaken for weakness. This is why Toph is so hard on Aang in this episode. She sees...
Can't you watch where you're...
No.
Okay, poor choice of words.
You can't see me, my time is now.
Aang's constant evasion is a weakness to her, and a rock cannot have a weakness. But both Aang and Toph reach a breakthrough thanks to Katara's positive reinforcement that allows their opposing forces to find balance and change. So this takes us to water.
Water is the element of change. The people of the water tribe are capable of adapting to many things.
Katara is a positive force for Team Avatar. She's the big sister, the mother figure of the team. Like water, she adapted quickly so she could help Aang save the world. And her strength is the glue that holds this team together. In bitter work, she's the one who helps Aang to overcome his mental block, as well as helping Toph to be a bit more flexible with her worldview. and it's only fitting that Katara mastered the ability to heal with water. Bitterwork doesn't touch on it, but this role she took upon herself is her way of filling a void. Katara suffers tremendous trauma after her mother was murdered by the Fire Nation. She never got the chance to deal with the grief. Instead, she adapted, like water. It isn't until Book 3 that Katara finally comes full circle and confronts her trauma. This happens when Katara tracks down her mother's killer with Zuko's help. When Katara finds the man she believes killed her mother, she doesn't hesitate and she blood bends.
Oh my god, what's bloodbending?
It's this forbidden art where a waterbender controls the blood inside a person. It is by far the scariest bending.
Satanic black magic. Sick shit.
Katara learned this skill from Hama, a waterbender that serves as a dark reflection of Katara's traumas. Like Jet in Book 1, Hama justifies her vengeance due to the pain the Fire Nation inflicted on her.
Think about what the Fire Nation did to your mother. We can't let them do that to anyone else ever again.
We have to fight these people whenever we can, wherever they are, with any means necessary.
And in this instance, Katara uses pain as an excuse for her vengeance. Even Zuko is shocked by what Katara has done. Carelessly bloodbending, something she vowed she would never do, finally allows her to confront her inner imbalance. And when she eventually finds the man who murdered her mother, she doesn't kill him. She doesn't forgive him, but she refuses to allow anger and vengeance to turn her into another Hama or Jet. Also, it's so fitting that Zuko is the one who helps Katara in this episode. After Zuko joins Team Avatar, everyone pretty much accepts him after he proves himself a trustworthy ally. Everyone except Katara. She distrusts him after he betrays her in Crossroads of Destiny. Zuko also deals with his own vengeful tendencies, so he's the catalyst that leads Katara on a path of vengeance. At the same time, Zuko understands Katara's grief and anger better than most because he never got closure for his mother.
Where is my mother?
And fire and water are opposites, just like Zuko and Katara's personalities are contrary to each other. These opposite forces help each other to find balance.
So Zuko is the yin to Katara's yang.
Exactly, high five. So there's this synergy between the characters. Each serves as a reflection of their best and worst traits. It's like a cycle of connections, like yin and yang. And this is crucial for when we dive deeper into Zuko's development. But before that, let's talk about Sokka. Now, Sokka doesn't have a huge character moment in Bitter Work.
How about that?
However, Iroh's lesson can also describe Sokka's amazing arc through this show.
They have a deep sense of community and love that holds them together through anything.
At the start of the show, he's a child playing soldier closed off to any change, constantly trying to overcompensate for everything. Like Zuko, Sokka tries to make his father proud, to a fault. Only in Sokka's case, his dad's pretty cool. But while Zuko cannot find humility because of his shame, Sokka's shame is the force that allows him to adapt and be humbled. He became a true warrior, learning quickly, but he also finds the balance in this war, never letting it rule over him. He achieves balance and becomes a hero and a leader. And he finds his place among his Bender family thanks to his skills and ingenuity. Also, this is a good place to mention the show's clever use of humor.
To perform the technique requires peace of mind.
I see. That's why we're drinking tea, to calm the mind.
Oh yeah, good point.
The nature of the show, being a cartoon, is the reason why the comedic timing works so well. Because when things get dark, as they so often do in Last Airbender, those moments now feel more impactful and meaningful. In a way, you can say the structure of the show has its own yin and yang, balancing the pathos with the humor.
My cabbages!
And this brings us back to Zuko.
Oh, I love Zuko. He's the best.
Yeah, best character in the show, or one of the best at least. Let me know your favorite character in Avatar down in the comments below. Now, Zuko is the pinnacle of the writing and character development in this series. But let's narrow it down to Bitter Work and its implications on Zuko's redemption.
Fire is the element of power. The people of the Fire Nation have desire and will, and the energy and drive to achieve what they want.
After failing to capture the Avatar, he and his uncle are branded as traitors. Zuko leaves his uncle for a time, trying to find some semblance of purpose after losing everything. While stranded alone, Zuko sees the war-torn world his dynasty has created, how their tyrannical conquest has spread across nations like wildfire, reflecting his own mental state and abuse from his father.
And suffering will be your teacher.
After Azula tries to kill him and Iroh, Zuko decides that he must defeat his sister. He directs his anger and shame toward her, and this is why he asks Iroh to teach him Lightning Generation. And here we see how much Iroh's lessons in Bitter Work actually mirror Zuko's arc. He cannot achieve balance. His positive and negative energies are in turmoil.
You will not be able to master lightning until you have dealt with the turmoil inside you.
What turmoil?
Zuko represents firebending during the 100-Year War. He is fully fueled by emotions of pride and rage, but Iroh describes lightning as,
it is not fueled by rage or emotion the way other firebending is.
Zuko cannot let go of his anger because of his shame. Mirroring Aang, Zuko avoids confronting his traumas. But while Aang evades his metaphorical boulder, Zuko charges right ahead with rage and ultimately fails. But, as Iroh says here,
pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source. True humility is the only antidote to shame.
And this basically sums up Zuko's entire arc in the rest of Book 2 and Book 3 until he finally confronts his shame and stands up to his dad. When Zuko fails with lightning generation, Iroh decides to teach him to redirect it instead.
And how does that work?
Instead of generating lightning, a firebender absorbs the energy into his body and then channels it outward. And this is such a beautiful illustration of Zuko's story. We'll explain the connection in just a moment. Zuko then asks Iroh to shoot him with lightning. However, Iroh refuses because...
What, are you crazy? Lightning is very dangerous.
So this leads to one of the most iconic and saddest moments of Zuko in the show. Zuko standing on top of a mountain during a storm and literally shouts at the sky to strike him down.
So he wants to kill himself?
I don't think so. The storm represents the brink of his shame. His depression is anger turned inward. I believe the storm is meant to symbolize Ozai. Zuko wants to redirect a bolt of lightning back at the storm, which signifies him wanting to throw back all the abuse and pain his father caused him.
You've always thrown everything you could at me. Well, I can take it, and now I can give it back!
This parallels the first time we've seen Iroh redirect lightning in the episode The Storm. Iroh redirecting a literal lightning bolt from the sky is awesome. This scene shows the duality of firebending and really all the elements when you think about it. Iroh absorbs all that energy and he chooses to release it. Someone like Ozai would have stolen that power and used it to destroy and conquer. And this is the generational conflict of the Fire Nation's royal family, which is represented in Iroh's flashback in Bitter Work. In his youth, he was a war general who wanted to prove himself worthy in his father's eyes, just like Zuko. But this war stole his son from him, a death that completely broke Iroh, forcing him to realize that Sozin's generational conquest was burning their family to ashes. Zuko represents the son Iroh lost.
Who are you? And what do you want?
And when Zuko finally confronts Ozai, we see how his lessons in Bitter Work allowed him to make a true change. This confrontation happens after Zuko betrays his uncle in Crossroads of Destiny. He sides with Azula and turns on Aang and Katara. Now this is the ultimate shame for Zuko. He betrayed the trust that Katara and Aang put in him after everything he's done to them. He betrayed his uncle after they finally got closer than ever. And more importantly, he betrayed himself after all the progress he made in Ba Sing Se. All of this triggers a firestorm of shame inside of him in Book 3.
I'm angry at myself!
His family reflects his shame, his anger, and his repressed trauma. There's nowhere to escape it, so he must face it head on. He finally accepts his shame. He sees that the only man's opinion he should have ever cared about was his uncle, his true father figure.
I was sad because I was afraid you lost your way.
I did lose my way.
But you found it again.
When he joins Team Avatar, we see a humble Zuko, who's finally willing to learn and bring balance to the world and to himself.
We've created an era of fear in the world, and if we don't want the world to destroy itself, we need to replace it with an era of peace and kindness.
And that's the Bitter Work, the discipline it takes to make a change. Zuko finally finds true humility by redirecting all of that shame and pain back at its source, his father.
But why didn't he just shoot the lightning himself?
Oh, I know, it would have been awesome if Zuko generated lightning, but I think it's a good thing and it's part of his character. Lightning is a deadly strike. It lacks emotion, the cold-blooded fire, like Azula. So it's fitting that the only two main villains generate lightning as an attack. Iroh never uses lightning offensively, which reinforces the idea that bending depends on the individual and how they choose to use it. Generating lightning means separating positive and negative energies, and this creates an imbalance, representing how Ozai and Azula create chaos in the world, sort of like the Sith Lord shooting lightning in Star Wars, which is ironic since Mark Hamill voices Ozai.
Oh, that's just beautiful.
So it's fitting that Zuko can never generate lightning because he's not a villain. He only redirects lightning by using a defensive technique. Iroh created lightning redirection based on waterbending. It's about the flow of energy, turning defense into offense. This perfectly ties into what Iroh says here.
Understanding others, the other elements, and the other nations will help you become whole.
Iroh teaches Zuko about the other peoples of the nations and their bending, so he understands how together they can create harmony, how each bending skill can help the other, and how each hero helps the others reach their full potential. It's a cycle of balance, a circle like yin and yang. Zuko even evolves his fighting skills with these teachings, using the techniques of other benders for defense as opposed to his usual rageful offense. When Zuko confronts his father, he redirects Ozai's lightning back at him. Zuko finally faces his shame, and when he redirects the lightning, he also channels all that shame and anger and hate and sends it back at its source. Zuko never needed to fight his father. It was never about defeating him. It was about overcoming his own traumas and helping Aang to bring balance to the world. And later, Zuko teaches Aang the technique, and Aang uses it in his battle against Ozai. Here, bitter work becomes important once again, since Aang is told by everyone that he must kill Ozai, and so he runs away again, which goes back to the impending rock where Aang must stand his ground or be crushed by it. When Aang faces Ozai, he absorbs all that energy. He can easily redirect the bolt back and end Ozai's life, but this act will be a betrayal of everything he stands for. So he uses Zuko's lesson to redirect the bolt, and he finds his own way to stop the Fire Lord.
I took away your firebending. You can't use it to hurt or threaten anyone else ever again.
In the final Agni Kai, Zuko goads Azula into shooting him with lightning, knowing that he can redirect it back at her. Azula is too smart for that, so she shoots Katara. Zuko sacrifices himself to save Katara, allowing the lightning bolt to pass through his heart. Now, Katara heals him. However, the fact that Zuko survived might symbolize the strength of his heart.
You must not let the lightning pass through your heart, where the damage could be deadly.
He was able to take on Azula's rage-fueled attack, the same kind of attack that he's so used to receiving from his family, and this time the strike did not destroy him. Now the beauty here is that Iroh explained that a bender does not command the lightning, he's only its humble guide. Aang, the Avatar, and Zuko, the new Fire Lord, become the guides of the world, ushering in an age of peace and balance. And this is why Bitter Work is such an awesome episode, and why I just freaking love this show. It is a masterpiece, and I really hope that the Netflix adaptation will take these lessons and create another great show. So, what lessons did you take from Bitter Work, and what are your favorite episodes of Avatar? Big shout out to the writer and editor of this video, Mr. Pavel T. So guys, let us know what you thought about the video down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.